sample bag in, and we've actually included a free electric car with every sample. There we go. No worries, see you later. David, it's any elevators up to the 5th floor. Okay. When you exit the elevators, you go right.
Good morning, ladies. A couple of ladies and gentlemen. How are we all this morning? Are we excited to be here?
Yeah.
Excellent. Obviously, because we've got Vicky Darden here, that's why you're all excited, right? Excellent. I've given each of you, or you should have received, a program for today. It's changed a little from the one I've sent you, so you're happy to make yourself familiar with it. I'm going to introduce Vicky now because she is a little pressed for time, so we'd like to hear from her. Vicky is our Minister for Environment. You probably are all aware. She is very hardworking when it comes to environmental issues and is currently and about to head off to Sandroad. And she's also working to help national parks and wildlife, as well as protecting the Great Barrier Reef. So I hope she's going to tell us lots of exciting things about EVs. We'll have to wait and see. So if you wouldn't mind welcoming Vicky Darden.
Thank you, Simone, and good morning, everyone. I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're gathered this morning. The Turrbal and Yaburara people have looked after the lands around Brisbane for thousands of years, and I'm sure they were using very low emission forms of transport well before we had to sit and consider it all. I would also like to acknowledge and thank Karen Sullivan, the member for Pumice-Stone, for chasing me up and making sure that I could come and address your conference this morning. She's a big champion of all things environmental, and I know is a huge electric vehicle fan. She's actually the chair of the Environment, Agriculture, Resources and Energy Subcommittee, so you might get in her ear about some future inquiries into the use of electric vehicles, but don't tell her I told you that. So, as most of you, I hope, are aware, on Wednesday I was able to launch Queensland's electric vehicle policy, Driving Change. This marks the beginning of an electric revolution on our roads and highways, and we want to make sure Queensland is well and truly ready. At the launch, I discussed the types of activities the Queensland Government will undertake to make Queensland EV ready and support EV uptake, and the reasons why we want to support this important technology.
Okay, our next speaker is Jay McCormack, and I guess you probably all know who he is. Who doesn't know who Jay is? He is from Tesla. I'll just introduce him. Jay is responsible for Tesla's sales and marketing operations, as well as brand development in Australia and New Zealand. Before joining Tesla, Jay worked with sports car company Porsche for 15 years in both management and training roles, specialising in product and retail development, customer driver training and motorsport activities as well. Jay joined Tesla in 2010 with the vision of dramatically changing the way people think about the motor car and leading the way to e-mobility in Australia with vehicles that do not compromise on range, style or performance. Please make welcome Jay McCormack.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here, and of course for the Australian Electric Vehicle Association. Lights? Okay, no problem. For having Tesla Motors here today as well. Brisbane's a great place, and it's also great to be presenting in front of a captive audience, I suppose. From time to time we have the opportunity to speak with new learned people, as well as people that are curious and inquisitive about electric vehicles. But first and foremost, speaking with a captured audience and enthusiastic people is always a great thing, because it stimulates far more positive conversations as well. The title of the presentation today is Leading the Revolution, Tesla Motors' Role in Accelerating E-Mobility. And I think Tesla Motors has venture capital and sustainable green thinking to thank for where we are today as a company. Because it does take a pretty big bet and a strong determination to drive through the idea of electric vehicles and, of course, to make that successful. There are a lot of creative ideas out there, and the electric car is a pretty creative idea in itself, but it is over 100 years old. But now it's up to a number of players in the automotive world to bring a change about. And that's one of the main reasons I'm here today, to be able to speak with you, and grateful, of course, on behalf of Tesla Motors, to say thank you for people that believe in big changes, believe in big ideas, and of course believe in disruptive technology for the better, of course, and from an e-mobility point of view, a real focus on sustainability. That means we can have a lot of fun and be very, very positive for our future as well. So I suppose, how did we arrive at the consideration or the need for alternative transport after about 100 years? And why is it important really for us here in Australia as well as all around the world? Well, as a nation, we're at a place really where we're no longer in control of our own destiny. We have so many geopolitical and environmental as well as economic issues in front of us. And we find ourselves really dependent and focused on a dwindling resource, and that being oil. With facts becoming clearer and clearer about production and, of course, that peak element of oil itself. This is all happening at a time where literally we have billions of new consumers emerging out of new markets and developing worlds. Vying for their own slice of middle-class lifestyle, and of course the trimmings that come with that, like the ownership and of course the independence of driving technology. We do understand and know that in the beginning of transport itself there are as many EVs on the road as there were internal combustion engines. And we all know that electric vehicles have their own advantages. The motor, for example, is upwards of 4 times more efficient than an internal combustion engine. They operate with no oil, which equals 0 emissions, obviously. And even if plugged into the dirtiest sector of the grid, EV still produces on Tesla Motors' overview of where we're positioned currently and where we're looking to in the future. As mentioned, revolutionising the change in e-mobility, Tesla Motors has been focused since early 2000 on relentlessly driving down the cost of technology.
Thank you, Jade, for that wonderful presentation. It's exciting to see that Tesla is working into more normal now. This is Dr. Andrew Simpson from, now my apologies if I say this wrong, Verdant Vision. Verdant Vision is a corporate member of the AEVA and provides independent expert advice on technology, policy and strategy for renewable electric transportation. Wow, what a word. A lot of words to say. They serve all segments of the electric vehicle market, industry, consumer, infrastructure and policy makers. And the clients are Australia-wide. Dr. Simpson founded Verdant Vision in 2011 based on 15 years of direct experience in this area, including work for the US National Renewable Energy Laboratory and Tesla Motors Inc. So, please make welcome Andrew Simpson.
Thank you, Simone, for that introduction. It's good to be here today. I'd also like to extend our thanks to the other organisers that I know. Don, where are you, Don? There you are. Thanks, Don. Greg, who's over in the back there, and there's a 4th one who I haven't met yet, so whoever you are, thank you. I look forward to meeting you later. As Simone said, yes, we're a consultancy in the electric vehicle space. We've been in this game for quite a long time, and since we're all a friendly bunch, I thought I might just humour you a little with our story over the 15 years that we've been working in this industry, and that'll give you a better appreciation for how we came to be where we are today. So my EV story starts back in 1997 when myself and Dave Finn, who's sitting over there from Tritium, waving ahead, Dave, he'll be talking later. Myself and Dave walked into a solar car meeting at the University of Queensland as second-year students at uni. And that led to us racing solar cars for 4 years across the Australian desert in Japan and a bunch of places. Dave developed all the power electronics for that vehicle, and I was in charge of strategy, making sure we got to the finish line on time. And pretty fun experience, a great way to cut your teeth in the EV technology sector. Then in 2000, we retired Sunshark from racing and set about commercialising those technologies. Dave founded his company Tritium, and I founded a research group at the university that started commercialising a couple of projects. The ultra-commuter concept car was one of the projects that came through that, and we were also playing around with a Penfold Sherpa conversion for quite a while as well at the university. But around 2005, Dave and I finished our postgrad studies. Dave went full-time with his company. We all set about trying to find more work and better incomes, and Australia was still a little bit quiet in 2005 in the EV scene, so for me that meant I went overseas to North America, where there was a lot more happening, and took a job with the US government in EV space. And with all those drivers, I think it really helps to actually provide a bit of a picture for what the future might look like, so the councils can understand how all this sort of fits together into a vision for the future that they can help communicate to their community. So I'm just going to quickly fly through.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Okay, we're a little early, but that's good. We're going to break for morning tea, and please come back just before 11 because we've got another couple of speakers happening.
About 3 to 2 on stage.
Yeah, so we
so far, stuff like that.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming back and not staying outside of the food. We're going to commence our mid-morning part of the convention now with Amarish Kulkarni from Brisbane University. He is a research associate working on electric vehicle drivetrain, Auto CRC Visionary Project. This research is developing a drivetrain assistant using low-cost direct drive SR motors inside wheels. Would you please welcome Amarish?
Thank you so much for inviting me to present at this conference. Swinburne University. I work for Swinburne University as a research associate, and we have an electric vehicle group which is sized for around 40 people, and it's headed by Professor Ajay Kapoor, who is the associate dean. Faculty consists of all types of disciplines, mainly mechanical, mechatronics, electronics, ICT, and even the guys from robotics and mechatronics. So basically what we are trying to do in Swinburne is trying to develop different types of electric vehicles, and we are trying to foresee that the technology is properly transmitted to some of the manufacturers locally, if not to the Asian countries, so that we can get the affordable electric car. When I talk about affordability, basically when we started building an electric car, we did some mapping that what kind of research we want to get involved, or what kind of things from a university perspective we should be involved in.
Now I would like to welcome Mark Whyte from Mitsubishi to the podium. Mark has been with Mitsubishi for about 4.5 years, and in August a role for the IME, did I say that right, IME? Thank you. Key account manager was created, and Mark moved from New South Wales all the way to South Australia to manage the role. Over the last 15 months, Mark has overseen the leasing of the 2010 year model IME to Mitsubishi Foundation clients, and they are now going to roll them out to the general market in 2012.
As Simone said, I've been looking after the IMEV account for Mitsubishi since last August. Obviously, talking to this group, which to a large degree preaching and converted, But for me personally, I'd never driven an electric vehicle aside from a golf buggy or a Dodge car 15 months ago, or 18 months ago. And it was a 5-minute drive in my knee around the rocks in Sydney that really sort of opened my eyes to what these cars could be. And when this position came up, it was pretty much a no-brainer to take up the family and move interstate to get in on the ground floor of the new technology. So it's been a very exciting time for us and for me personally. But today what I want to talk to you about is a little bit about how we've got to where we are, where we're going from here, but more importantly, some of the barriers to EV adoption. Most of this is, there's a lot of misconceptions out in the marketplace, there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Extensive experience as a senior finance executive in listed and multinational companies covering financial services, retail and energy. Prior to joining ChargePoint, James was the CFO of Babcock Brown Power, now Alinta Energy. The listed electricity generator and gas retailer. This business acquired the Alinta electricity generating and gas retail operations, which has over 500,000 customers, retail, wholesale and industrial. Prior to BBP, James was the CFO of Foodland Associated, the third largest listed grocery retail company in Australia. So he's had a lot of experience with a lot of big things, I think is the point. Please welcome James Brown.
While the presentation gets put up, I'll just quickly talk. I've followed Mark on a few presentations, and he puts up these myths. And every time I see these myths, I sit there and say, I know exactly what you mean, because first of all, the car's very zippy, and people look at the IME and they go, "Oh, it doesn't go." Well, it does actually go, because that way I drag a Monaro, so that was a pretty exciting bit of thing. But the one myth I do agree with about the cost. It is quite high, but you know, it's funny, my wife drives the IME occasionally too, and she forgets the cost and just loves getting an electric car. So when my wife says that, you know it's really going to happen. Now, I'm under a tight time constraint, so I'm going to go zoom through. So I just want to talk about the early challenges that we've seen, probably more on the power side of things and a bit more on some of the education behaviours. So just the usual disclaimer, that's my days at Babcock and Brown. And I must admit, just because I'm a Brown and Babcock and Brown had a few problems, I wasn't related to it at all. Right, momentum's increasing. The one thing that we've seen quite a lot of being in the infrastructure business is that momentum, and these cars are coming. Mark spoke about the IME on sale now, the Leaf's coming, the Bolt's coming, the Fluence is coming. We're seeing this tsunami of interest coming through, and then we probably get about 5, 6, 7, 8 inquiries per week about putting some infrastructure in, and then they sort of sit there and go, well, I'm not quite sure when the cars are coming, but the education that's approaching. But what's actually also happening is we're finding that there's strategic requirements. Drivers are beginning to understand that driving an electric car is really different to driving a petrol car. So things like mobile applications, they need it, they want it, and they're demanding it, and it's the type of driver they are. They're looking at trying to get real-time status of what's happening to my vehicle, you know, what's happening to the charging station, is my battery full, what's going on there? And they're looking at open access systems. You know, I often stand in front of people and say, you know, we're in the electric car recharging business, and they get all excited, and they think, oh wow, and then I explain to them it's just a sexy power point. So, but they want to be able to plug into those sexy power points wherever they go.
And what he was saying to me was that he finds that businesses using the pollards are charging at times that are probably not appropriate, and they're misusing it slightly. So he said, for example, that on a Saturday and a Sunday, they get used quite a lot when businesses probably don't use the cars in that time, but they're leaving them plugged in. So what he said was...
Business strategy
small trips, which means they're only doing.
I've seen you did this once.
Oh, would you like to come?
Come on.
That means you don't use much of the battery, so if you put it back on charge when you come back, it charges up again, which means it's not charging for a long period of time. So the weekday battery usage is only 37% of capacity, which means they're not being cycled, usually for the whole capacity of the battery. Retard behaviour personal. So the people who are taking the cars, this is information I think from the Victorian EV trial. So the people who are taking the first lot of cars were chosen to be tech savvy first adopters, want to be green, want to be keen, want an electric vehicle. So that they tended to use the vehicle consistently. They didn't, after a short period of time, they didn't have range anxiety. They knew what the vehicle could do. They were happy to use it like that. And showing the private kilowatt usage during the week, which is fairly steady, which means the car's being used for consistent period. And per session, there's only small variations in the number of kilowatt hours being used.
And what he also said was that these are probably people like us that probably already turn off our power at the power point rather than having standby it, because we already know what we're doing to save that money.
Data indicative of current behaviour, not necessarily reflective of future or future demand. There might be another slide where I can put it in now. He says there's also a tendency, for this slide, yes, for people to plug the cars in as soon as they get it back home. So because they don't have range anxiety, but they do have, I want to use the car again, I don't want to run out of range anxiety. So therefore, you can see from the charging session times, they're not necessarily charging at the best time for grid usage. So not at times of low demand, but quite possibly times of high demand.
Yeah, and that would be the next
story. So I thought today I'd try and talk about specific things about lithium-ion, a bit of a background, but also talk about two of the things that are preventing lithium-ion to really get electric vehicles off the road. From my point of view, that's life cycle costs and also the trade-off between the weight of the battery and the range you can get out of it. So I'll talk about those two things today. I'll try to put it into perspective with what we're doing here in Brisbane. We actually have a 2-tonne per annum plant that makes lithium iron phosphate. It actually performs the best in the world at the moment. We have some very exciting projects on at the moment with the next generation materials, which have twice the capacity of, for example, lithium iron phosphate, which is quite exciting. I'll try and wrap it up with a few slides that give you some idea about cost indications going forward through 2020. Then I'll open up for questions. This is a slide that I like because I think it's very eloquent. It's something that came out about 10 years ago when Sony really came to the market with their portable lithium-ion batteries. It's from my parents' camcorder. I like using it because I think it's a good start to think about the terms that you use when you talk about lithium-ion batteries. So if I go through this very quickly, if you buy one of their equipment 10 years ago, they'll tell you that the battery life is limited, battery capacity drops little by little as you use it, more and more, and as time passes. There's 3 words here or 3 concepts here in red. First of all is capacity, which most of you have some idea about. There's 2 ideas here related to lifetime. The first is cycle life, how you use the battery, but also time. We talk about calendar life. So it's important when you look at the lifetime of the battery, understand it's not just about how you use it, but keeping a battery sitting there for 10 years will lead to degradation. When the available battery time is shortened considerably, a problem causes the battery packs is reaching end of life. This is when I was working in Sweden, particularly with Volvo, we had a lot of discussions on how we define end of life. I think it depends on the actual application. So for an electric vehicle, they were talking about capacity definition. So when you capacity is faded by 20%.
That was David Finn from Tritium to give his speech. David founded Tritium along with James Kennedy and Paul in 2001 to commercialise the motor controller technology that David developed as part of the University of Queensland solar racing team. This technology was developed further during David's PhD, completed in 2005, which involved the creation of a new power electronic topology for efficiently driving low inductance motors. Tritium has been a full-time venture since 2005, focused on developing world-leading EV powertrains here in Australia. If you could please welcome David Finn.
Thanks very much for that introduction, Simone. I think the introduction you gave was probably enough, actually. I probably don't need to say much more about our background. Might just lean on a little bit more. I think in 2005 was when Tritium actually went full-time, and we received QSEF funding to take our controller we had been selling at that time to the solar car teams and turn that into a controller that was more for a larger vehicle. As it turned out, it ended up just being used by solar car teams anyway, but it was certainly a very high efficiency unit and ended up with 50% penetration in that market. So that was a great success, and at that time we could see the market was finally starting to emerge for electric vehicles in general, and we started to develop our WaveStop 200, which is a 160 kVA inverter. And we demonstrated that in 2009 in a Honda Civic, which we drove from Darwin to Adelaide. Now, today, what I want to do today is present some of the experiences that we've had driving different motor types with our inverter and some of the algorithms we've developed to be able to do that.
Okay, something that's not on your program that we sort of added last night, I didn't add it on the program, is we're going to have Darryl Bunchen come and say a couple of words. He's our Secretary of the National Body. So please welcome Darryl Bunchen.
Thanks, Mike. Actually, I asked if they had a slot that I could come and say something. They said, oh yes, looks like someone's not turning up. But now it looks like not turning up because of the interesting presentations we've had and the number of good questions that has run down time, so I'll try and be as quick as possible. First thing I'd like to do is say this has been a wonderful convention conference with a great number of interesting speakers. I think as good as anything I've been to, and I've been to a lot of these things. And certainly the organising committee and Simone in particular should be congratulated on the way that it's been organised and presented. Now, going on from that, yes, as you probably all realised, EVs are coming, and it looks as though nothing is going to stop them. I was actually at an energy conference last week in Melbourne, which wasn't a general invitation one. One interesting thing is, to this conference, they thought to invite someone from the Australian Electric Vehicle Association. Secondly, although it was an industry conference with speakers from industry, not specifically targeting sustainable or renewable at all, a great number of the presentations seemed to gravitate back to renewables and then on to electric vehicles. So there was a large electric vehicle content in something which was on face value, nothing to do with vehicles at all. And I think that's a very interesting observation on the way things are going forward. So, following on from presentations I've been to and seen, and you may not like some of the things I'm going to say now because it's like an extrapolation. And certainly I have to credit James Brown on, you saw his presentation there, on putting some of the ideas in my head, as well as some of the energy presentations I've been to where they're talking about, and the big concern in the energy presentations is EVs become mainstream. Well, they are practically talking about electrifying the entire transport grid. They're saying fossil fuels will go. They will have a very limited application 10, 20, 30 years in the future. So they will go. And transportation will be mostly electrified. You might still need some jet fuel, but I think they've got some plans to make that out of bio.
Mine coming up. If there's some questions, we could maybe answer them. Am I putting you on the spot? Come on. Give them all enough welcome. Are there any more questions? Yes.
did mention, I had to go about halfway through that, but in the early piece you mentioned that the lithium-ion batteries degrade because the lithium degrades from the battery. It dissipates or gets worn out or whatever. Is it possible to regenerate those batteries by adding lithium back to the cell?
No.
Once it's gone, that's it.
It's gone. So lithium, you have to actually always treat in an environment where there's very low water and oxygen to actually disassemble them and actually cook them. Like you wouldn't build that acid battery, it's just not possible. You just can't burn it. Unfortunately. Yeah, it's gone. It's not that lithium degrades, you have lithium ions and they will react to form something else. So if you reverse that byproduct, you can maybe get some capacity back, but in general it's gone.
The back there.
Mark, have you got any energy consumption figures for the iron meter at the moment, like watt hours per 100 km and stuff like that? And are we, obviously all our internal combustion vehicles that they go to market have their fuel consumption stickers stuck on them. Is that going to come with EVs as well?
Yeah, obviously it'll be a different measurement, but essentially, yeah. The watt hours per kilometre, I can't remember off the top of my head. Basically, we're talking about a 16 kilowatt hour battery. In realistic terms, 110 to 120 kilometre range. So you can do the maths based on that, which top of the head, not good enough, sorry. But, yeah, there's going to be different measurements in EVs. The US has already put in a way of measuring that, and you get they actually relate it back to a miles per gallon, basically, using the energy rather than the actual fuel.
With the production of electric vehicles about to ramp up enormously, I'm just wondering which chemical elements sort of that are going to be used in the manufacture are going to start sort of coming in critically short supply. You know, there's various, you know, rare earths and whatever. Can anyone sort of answer that one?
Alright, so for the lithium-ion batteries, there's no rare earth material. You only have to start worrying about rare earth when you start to talk about the fuel cells. That's quite far way down the tracks, and you have to use platinum. So that's really the only rare material that I can think of.
Yeah, I'm talking about the the engine as well and the magnets.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so we've certainly had people come to us, and I can't say who, but they've asked, can you please replace the rare metal in our motors with some sort of metal oxide? So there's certainly those discussions happening with that.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm aware, there's no real limit to the limitation on the actual materials in the ground. The issue at the moment is the tariffs that China just stuck on the rare earth material itself, mostly so that they can keep it internally and value add and make their own products with it. And certainly the Japanese aren't very happy about this, so they're busy trying to find new sources of that. And I was talking to them the other day, so they're doing very well with that. So I think it will just be a short-term spike.
I'll offer one other thing. It's really important to recognise that the materials we're talking about that will be used in batteries and motors are not like oil or other consumables. These are not consumables. They get built into products, but because they're very valuable materials, and companies like Shelley's and others know the value, they will be recycled. So we're not going to have peak lithium or peak neodymium, because once we dig it out of the ground, we can just keep using it over and over and over again. So, and there's a fundamental difference that will change the way the economics of that whole industry works. But yeah, we're going to see some geopolitical squabbles over some, but you know, it's just the market at work. And that's how it is.
I'm going to get back there at the battery car soon. Is there if I use it for 5%, if I use 5% of its capacity for 2 years and recharge after that 5% versus using 80% every day for 2 years recharging, is there any real difference to the life of that?
So for example, for the power assist HEVs, to give you numbers, they typically swing between 5 to 10%, and the rate at which it degrades is at the same rate as if you just held it at that potential the whole time. So it has cycling 5 to 10% has very little impact compared to just holding the battery at that potential. But as soon as you start to swing 40 to 60 to 80, then you start to see an acceleration of degradation.
Right, so shorter trips are better?
Yes.
Thank you.
So 4 point, question. I can answer you later, but it might be interesting for everyone here. Can you put 50 hertz main through into the lithium-ion pack and not affect its life?
Yes, there's two things I always wonder about that, and also vibration. And I ask it all the time, and I never get a good answer. You'll have to let us know next year.
Could we hear that question again?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just asking about because Shelley was saying the smaller voltage cycles weren't affecting the lifetime of battery. I thought it's a logical question to ask. If we put 50 hertz ripple current into the battery, and then you've got a 100 hertz 100 hertz current waveform that's going to come straight out of a single phase charger, unless it's heavily filtered. Is it okay to put that straight into the battery pack? Does it affect its lifetime?
I think my comment and my response was that that's one of the questions I've always had together with what's the impact of the vibration on the vehicle, on the actual battery. These are things that I haven't seen much data on. I can comment though that I know that Saab and Volvo Technology were putting batteries on and rippling them.
Yeah, it's certainly very tempting from a power electronics point of view to not worry about filtering the output of it.
They certainly, like for example, for a power assist, that's a 120-second cycle. That was going between, that was 5% swing state of charge. But that didn't have any degradation compared to the standard at that stage. Tom?
Shelley, can we as home converters buy a battery using your technology?
Yeah, I get that all the time at work. The answer is I wish. So we only supply material at the moment for battery manufacturers to test our material. I showed that plant where we're trying to go to scale so that we can actually supply, particularly to China and Europe, so they could actually make batteries to supply. We've certainly looked at projects, and there's people in this room that we've talked to in the past to maybe get someone to make batteries and then get them onto a vehicle and to see how they perform. But we're not in a position to actually provide batteries at the moment. Or even providing raw material. It'd have to be a demo project and there'd have to be some money on the table.
So are you limited, or can you supply that product to someone in Australia, particularly a manufacturer?
We could definitely supply it to a manufacturer in Australia.
Okay.
We actually have supplied our product to nearly everybody out there.
Yes.
So as soon as the non-disclosure goes in, which takes about a month to discuss, then we supply and then they normally come back with some sort of feedback.
Mark, do Mitsubishi still see hydrogen playing a role as an energy storage material?
We're not really doing much in the hydrogen field at this point in time. It's sort of something they put on the back burner. One of the reasons, or a few reasons, one is it's at the moment very energy intensive to actually basically bottle hydrogen. It's also expensive, and it gets you back into that whole service station type mentality where you're going to have refueling points, because it's not something you're doing at home.
But you haven't gone to the stage of actually completely turning off that R&D?
No, because there could well be more in a range extending type vehicle. We're thinking of that as a potential fuel cell for your generator.
There's a lot of nuts there. All of them are not energy saving. Just wanted to point that out.
Let's see if I could comment. When I started in Europe, there was no money for lithium-ion battery research. It was all pummeled into fuel cells, whether it was PEM fuel cells, SOC, NFC, and then within 5 years, just gone. Everything is just being thrown into lithium-ion. So I think for the high-energy ones, the MCFC and also the SOC, there's sort of an opinion that the Japanese have sorted out those issues anyway. The PEM fuel cells is always this platinum issue. So.
James, do you think the government's likely to go down a road use charge than an excise on electricity path?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I do, because they already have. What most people don't realise is that some of the alternative fuels that are used in the heavy vehicle sector don't pay excise, but they do pay a road user charge. So there's already a precedent for it. And furthermore, the Henry Tax Review also recommended that that was the best approach. I would strongly discourage any attempts to try to recover an excise type fee through electricity sales, because electric vehicles are not the only users of electricity. And a road user charge just makes intuitively so much more sense as a technology neutral approach to getting some revenue to cover the cost of transport infrastructure, which is what it's all about.
But how would that road user charge work? Is it just sort of part of registration, or yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there'd be implementation issues around how you would monitor that data. There's the big brother question that goes along with that, but it seems to me on a practical level to be a far more appropriate way to capture the cost of using roads, which is what it's for. It's not the use of electricity that we're trying to tax, it's the use of roads. So let's tax the use of roads.
So that's what government are looking at, where they put up portals for when you drive into Brisbane, you might have to pay go to CBD or something like that. That's one suggestion.
Oh, no, they're nowhere near that. But as a concept, it has been put forward by the Henry Tax Review. It's also been endorsed by all the motoring clubs, and some segments of the heavy transport vehicle sector who use alternative fuels like biofuels or gaseous fuels are already paying a road user tax in lieu of not paying excise. So there's plenty of evidence to suggest that's probably where we'll go. That's my view.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Grab a seat. For the AGM and what was the other thing?
Council.
Council meeting. So if you're not involved with that, you're welcome to this.
Just one more thing, Simone. Set this up.